Susan, one of the questions we went through last time we met, and we were talking about off camera as well, is the summer results that showed there was a number of high profile surveys that were, the results were released, and obviously it showed not surprising but very damning figures towards developers and the public trust towards them. And we knew it was never going to be great, but unfortunately it was probably worse than I would have expected, especially in my capacity as well. What do you think that individual developers can be doing as of next year if they're interested in working in a public capacity or they're public facing, which most developers are in some degree? What do you think they can be doing to try and slowly rebuild that trust, or just simply to stand out from those who are tarnished with that brush?
Yes, what I found quite surprising is that people were so surprised by the results of the perception survey, because going back to what I was saying about my time at London Business School, it became quite apparent to me then that our industry was just not held in the regard that we think it should be held. And I think things have got progressively worse since then, because there's been a bit of there's been a backlash against capitalism, I suppose, and people look to the property sector to fix the housing crisis, and the property sector is expected to provide social housing, and it's a big ask. So yes. It's woken a lot of people up to actually they have to look at this and come to terms with how
thinking about how they present themselves, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the issues is we do amazing things, we just don't tell our stories very well. So the development that comes up most as being an exemplar of creating a community is King's Cross, but would anybody outside the industry know that story and how long it took what went into creating that? I think possibly not. So I think we do need to tell our stories a lot better. And the trouble is, John Major recently, in relation to the Supreme Court Act, he was looking around for an insult for Boris Johnson, and the worst he could come up with was he's like a dishonest estate agent. So again, that doesn't do a lot for our industry. No. Yes, it's a question of rebuilding trust, and it's down to, I suppose, every developer to work closely with the local authorities and communities that they are trying to engage with. And it's interesting, it's something that came up a lot at the party conference dinners, that at local government level, the council leaders are working so hard to engage with developers so that they can provide new homes and so they can provide jobs in their areas. But it takes time to build up trust, and the sort of developers that come in and just build and then, or just get the planning consent and then disappear, obviously that makes it difficult for the local authority, because they've put their neck on the block and say, no, this is a developer who's going to stay with us in the long term, and then they've moved on
to the next project.
And it's a question of listening. It's actually a question of listening to what the community wants, what the local authority wants and needs, rather than imposing, what you as developer thinks should be there. And it can take a long time. And I suppose you just have to be patient, and you have to be prepared to work hard over quite a long period of time to make it happen. And again, looking at the King's Cross story, I read somewhere that Roger Madlin, when he was actually doing the community engagement, had over 9,000 separate meetings with people to actually
wow.
Yeah, and
to take on board
take on board, and it was a long slog. I think Argent were appointed developers in 2001, and they didn't actually get the first plan consent until about 2008. But that is a very big scheme, so one would hope on a smaller scheme, it's not going to be that sort of scale. But I think people just have to be patient, and they have to listen. and sometimes what they're going to be told is not necessarily what they want to hear. So and then if you're a small developer, you don't have limitless bottomless pockets, so that's an issue as well. So I think just in terms of budgeting for something like that, it must be difficult because you're going in not quite knowing how long it is before you get planning consent. You've then got the political side of it. There could be a change of control, change of politics in the local authority while you were going through the cycle. So it's not easy, but I think it's all about people. And it's all about relationships. So, yes, as a developer, you're going into a situation where, the community may have had a bad experience with a previous developer, so you're just rebuilding. But it's, it's about building those relationships.
And we were discussing the idea of, of being an influencer and a property influencer as well. Do you feel that there could be an opportunity for, and I was talking to Steve Edge about this, a mutual friend, who will also be at the dinner, that maybe part of the solution is actually to make the teams and the individuals behind more available. So in terms of just being stuck behind a brand or knowing that a brand of developer or house builder is in your area, that actually, it may not be as many as 9,000 meetings, but making yourself available to be known to the public and sort of, be seen to at least try and listen to some of the requests and inquiries. Do you think that could be one way that we could see more trust in the industry?
Well, I would hope that that's what developers are doing, because you can't go in as a sort of faceless organisation. It has to be individuals leading the charge, and you certainly can't leave it to your sort of PR company. I think these days people want authenticity. They want to see the person that they're dealing with, and they will or won't trust the person that they're dealing with. So I think Steve's absolutely right, and of course Steve is all about telling the story and sort of making it clear what the brand of the development company stands for. So I think that's all part of the mix, definitely.
Wonderful, very interesting. Thanks, Susan.
It's a pleasure.